Owen, how are you this evening?
Oh my gosh, I'm confused.
Okay, we're recording.
6 p.m., January 13th. I'm Mayor Julia Johnson. I'm going to call the City of Sedro-Woolley City Council to order, the meeting to order. Please stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And we'll begin with roll call. And I'm going to start with our new member to the council. Actually, he's not so new. He's been here before, but Councilman Kevin Lloyd.
I'm here if you can see me.
I can indeed. And Councilman Chuck Owen.
Present.
Thank you. Councilman Brendan McGoffin.
Present.
Councilman Carl DeYoung.
Present.
Councilman Glenn Allen.
Present.
Councilwoman Joellen Kesty.
Present.
And Councilwoman Brenda Kinzer.
Present.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I am looking for an approval to the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Councilman McGoffin, I second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Councilwoman Kinzer, seconded by Councilman McGoffin. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Looking at the consent agenda, looking for an approval. Items 1 through 6.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Thank you.
Rowan.
Thank you. I had a motion by Councilwoman Kinzer, seconded by Councilman Owen. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Well, we have really, I consider this usually one of our best council meetings when we have the honor and the privilege of swearing in new officers. And before I do, Lieutenant McElraith, is there anything you would like to say to introduce our new police officers?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you for getting these guys on the agenda. This is our new young force coming in under totally different circumstances. You've probably heard names and such throughout this last year, but now you'll be able to put a face to this. So I think it's important that they get a chance to be introduced, sworn in, and recognized. This year has been totally different, different academy than we've ever seen. Closed, open, shut down, resuming, and really just totally different to where they don't get the same things that I got to do or any officers before. We get to go to a ceremony, graduation ceremony, be recognized by our family and friends. They haven't got to do any of that. So this is kind of their opportunity to be sworn in on video, and hopefully their family gets to see some type of recognition and be proud of their children there. So this is what we got. D.L. Witt, he did get sworn in by the mayor personally. He graduated back in July. And so we're just kind of helping him to get recognized, and you guys know this face. Then we had 2 more graduate in November, Harry McGahey and Kira Foster. And then in December, we had 2 more graduate, Cody Veltizen and Ruben Fortuna. So that's your young bunch, and you're going to be seeing them out and about. You've probably already seen them out and about. turning those lights on and protecting our city. And I know they're proud to be here and they want to be part of this community. I think we did very well in hiring these people. So, Madam Mayor, it's all you. You're going to be reading quite a bit.
Right. Thank you, Lieutenant McElraith. And I got to tell you, it is my honor to be able to do this. And we're going to take you one at a time. So I'm going to begin with Ruben Fortuna. So Ruben, if I could have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ruben J. Fortuna,
I, Ruben J. Fortuna,
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the constitutions and the laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington.
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington.
And I will do the best of my judgment,
And I will do the best of my judgment,
skill, ability, truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
Skagit County, Washington.
Skagit County, Washington.
As such are the duties prescribed by law, so help me God.
As such are the duties prescribed by law, so help me God.
Congratulations, Officer Fortuna. And I would say welcome to the team, but you've already been a part of the team. So
Thank you.
yes, it's great to have you on board. And I have here your oath. I will sign it, and then either tomorrow or sometime next week, if you have time, if you could come in and sign it, and we will put that in your file.
Okay, I will do.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Kira Foster. I'm looking for Kira. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
There you are. I see you. Okay. Kira, if you will raise your right hand. I, Kira J. Foster,
I, Kira G. Foster,
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
do solemnly swear that I'm the citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I would support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability, truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
the duties of a police officer in and for Sedro-Woolley,
Skagit County, Washington,
Skagit County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by laws.
of such duties prescribed by laws,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Kira, and welcome aboard.
Thank
I've
you.
had the chance to meet you. It's been a joy. It really has. I hope I get to see you around more.
Yes.
Again, this is your oath. I will sign it. And if you can come in tomorrow or sometime next week to sign it, that'd be great. Thank you,
Perfect.
Kira. Congratulations. Okay, Harrison McGahey.
I mean,
Hello, Harrison. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm well. You will hold up your right hand. I, Harrison A. McGahey,
I, Harrison A. McGay,
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the
Constitution
Constitution and laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will do to the best of my judgment,
and will do to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability, truly, faithfully, and impartially perform the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, Washington, as such are duties prescribed by law. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Harrison.
Thank you so
Again?
much.
Sure. Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Cody Veltizen. I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
Yeah, you got it.
Perfect. Okay, Cody, welcome. Right
Thank you.
hand.
Good to be here.
Good. I, Cody T. Veltizen,
I, Cody T. Veltizen,
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will do to the best of my judgment,
and will do to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability, truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
Skagit County, Washington,
Skagit County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
as such duties are prescribed by law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Cody.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good to have
Thanks.
you on
Good to be
board. It's great to have you all here. Again, your oath, and just come in and sign it when you have the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Cody. And Dion Witt.
I'm here.
Hello, Dion.
Hello.
We've been down this path before, haven't we?
Yep.
You're an old pro. I'll have you raise your right hand. I, Dion C. Witt,
I, Dion C. Witt,
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability, truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
truly, faithfully, and impartially perform
the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
the duties of police officer in and for the city of Sedro-Woolley,
Skagit County, Washington,
Skagit County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
and such duties are prescribed by law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Dion. And we do have a signed copy, so we can go with that, or if you'd like to sign a second one, you're more than welcome to. All right. Okay, well, congratulations, everyone. It is truly great to have you on board. I know that there was quite a vetting process that went into selecting you, and you truly are the cream of the crop here, and we're very happy to have you on board. Lieutenant McElraith, I want to thank you tonight for bringing them in, getting them on board, and we can get them sworn in. And I didn't know, I just wanted to ask the chief if he wanted to say anything, or I know you've,
Yeah,
okay.
I can say just something real quick. One of the things that council, if you get a chance to look at what you got in front of you, you've got all of these two bodies. I've got 2 more waiting to come in. And hopefully in the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to be hiring 2 to 3 more to replace a couple more people. So this is the future of the Sedro-Woolley Police Department. Dan did a great job in kind of helping get these people through. My sergeants have done a great job in helping vetting this process. And we got extremely fortunate to have such good people. And that's the best part of this whole thing, is we hired a bunch of good people. A couple of them are kind of cocky, and we need to kind of straighten them out a little bit, Cody. I mean, not to mention any of them specifically, but in all honesty, they're really good people. And that's the best part of this, is we hired a bunch of good humans, and they've been doing good work so far. We expect nothing else. And one of the easiest things is they've kind of fit right in with the crew that we've already got. And that was one of the things that we were really looking forward to, is somebody that fit in with the good people that we've already got. We look forward to a lot of years of service from them, and hoping here in the next few years when I retire that I can walk away and know that we've got a good group of people stepping in to I guess serve the citizens of Sedro-Woolley. And it, honestly, it makes a difference that we work for good people, we work with good people, and we serve good people. And that's kind of that's why we got what we got. We got a good thing going here. We want to keep it going. So thank you, Mayor, and congratulations all of you that got sworn in tonight. And thank you, Council, for letting this kind of thing happen. I'm going to be coming to you for more, but no big surprises there. But thank you again, all. That's all.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. It is our honor, Sedro-Woolley's honor, to have them. Okay, moving along, we have a presentation by our City Attorney, Nikki Thompson. And Nikki, I'm going to let you take it from here.
So I am going to forewarn you that I am actually without power and without internet and working from my phone this evening in complete darkness. And so if I end up cutting out, I am very, very sorry. And I'm very thankful to Doug this evening for helping to manage this PowerPoint that I sent him in advance. So this evening, we're going to be talking about potential code changes to the municipal code regarding hearing examiner decision-making in quasi-judicial matters. Doug, if you want to move the slide. So really what we want to talk about this evening is whether council wants to make a code change that would vest final decision-making in the hearing examiner for quasi-judicial decisions. Doug. So we've talked about this before, but if you remember, legislative decisions are those types of decisions that council is frequently tasked with making. Those are decisions that legislate or that enact laws or that put in place the framework that tells people how decisions are to be made or what criteria we want to use. Quasi-judicial actions are those that adjudicate and that determine the rights of specific parties. Doug, if you could change the slide. So hearing examiners are used in jurisdictions all over the state, and the legal authority for them comes from multiple places in state law, including in 35A 63-170, which is the part of the RCWs that applies to code cities, and then 58-17-330. 58-17 is the subdivision, the division of land piece of the RCWs. The function of the hearing examiner is to act as an objective decision maker in quasi-judicial hearings. So hearing examiners can hear all sorts of different matters, and there is authority for that in 35A 63-170. Hearing examiners can consider zoning changes that are not of general applicability, like site-specific rezones, Obviously, zoning changes that are of general applicability are things that the legislative body enacts through ordinances. You as a council have broad discretion to assign all sorts of matters to the hearing examiner. Conditional uses, variances, subdivisions, shoreline permits, or any other class of applications for or pertaining to development of land or land use. This is further spelled out in 5817 as well. Hearing examiners frequently hear appeals of administrative decisions and appeals of administrative SEPA decisions. So hearing examiner decisions, they can either be sort of recommendations or they can be final decisions. Under both 35A 63-170 and 5817-330, hearing examiners can be designated by the city council as the final decision makers for quasi-judicial decisions. In those circumstances, the appeal is directly to the Superior Court under a LUPA for land use decisions. This is not allowed in cases of rezones, so that would not be a situation where we'd be talking about a code change. The city of Sedro-Woolley does have a hearing examiner system, which I've had the pleasure of being involved with several times, and I think that it works very well. Provisions relating to the hearing examiner system can be found in your municipal code in chapter 2.34 and chapter 2.90. And your hearing examiner has dual roles, both as a recommending authority and then also as a decision maker. Under your municipal code in 290-060, the hearing examiner's responsibilities include hearing and deciding administrative appeals, conditional use permits, shoreline permits, SEPA appeals, and variances. The hearing examiner also is responsible for, developing the record in matters that are to be decided by city council. Sedro-Woolley's hearing examiner, in its role as a recommending authority, under 290-060, the hearing examiner is responsible for holding hearings and making recommendations to council on PRDs, major amendments to PRDs, preliminary plats, site-specific rezones, variances related to a full subdivision, manufactured home subdivisions, to name a few. Council then reviews the record created by the examiner and makes the final decision based solely on that record that was created at the hearing examiner level, which is, of course, a quasi-judicial action like we've talked about before. Sedro-Woolley's hearing examiner also acts as a decision maker. As your code is currently written, the hearing examiner makes decisions on type 3 applications. Type 3 applications include certain non-conforming and conditional use permits and variances. The hearing examiner also makes certain environmental decision and hears impact fee and administrative decision appeals. Decisions made by the hearing examiner are appealable under your municipal code to the city council under the procedures that are included in 290. You've recently experienced this with an appeal of a variance that came before you about a month or so ago. Decisions of the council are final, and those are appealable to the Superior Court. So you as council are the final decision maker in certain types of matters. So in addition to decisions on appeals from the hearing examiner, the city council currently makes the final decision on type 4, type 5, and type 6 permit classifications. We aren't talking about type 6 permits here because those decisions are legislative in nature and would not be included in any proposed code changes. So as indicated earlier in an earlier slide, included in type 4 and type 5 permits are final approvals of PRDs, major amendments. There are 2 preliminary plats, final plats, floodplain district development permits or variances. These types of approvals would be included in the recommended code changes. So why are we talking about potential code changes? Many jurisdictions have moved away from council as the decision-making body in quasi-judicial matters. The question that staff wants to pose to you today is whether Sedro-Woolley wants to consider moving to the hearing examiner as a final decision maker. There are a number of benefits of having the hearing examiner be the final decision maker. Decision makers are removed from politics when they are hearing examiners. They have legal and land use training, and that enhances the quality of the decisions. They're familiar with the Growth Management Act and with development regulations and with comprehensive plans. Their decisions are focused on code requirements. And it is a faster and more efficient, predictable process. As we've talked about, there are additional steps that come into play when counsel is a decision maker, either from an appeal that the hearing examiner, an appeal of a decision the hearing examiner has made, or that last step beyond the hearing examiner as the final decision maker. Having counsel in that process does take additional time, and in my experience, developers have been pleased when that extra step has been eliminated. So hearing examiners also tend to reduce appeals and judicial challenges coming from interested parties, in particular from developers. They tend to be protective of constitutional due process rights, and it does tend to build public confidence and create better customer service. There's certainly benefits to council to moving away from being the ultimate decider on land use matters. It separates the quasi-judicial and the legislative functions, and it eliminates that no-win situation that you often can find yourselves in when you have a developer that wants to build out a plat, and you know you want affordable housing, but you have neighbors nearby that are saying, well, we don't like the location and we don't want this here. And so you've got that inherent tug of war that is happening between the two parties. And having a hearing examiner making the final decision eliminates that discomfort. It also frees policymakers to act on long-term planning and lawmaking functions. It reduces the likelihood of judicial reversal on appeal and reduces the likelihood of liability for legal damages.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the additional cost to the city to employ a hearing or contracting with, or maybe we should be informed of what the process is to bring a hearing examiner on board? What is the additional cost to the city for that?
So you already have a hearing examiner system in place, and you already have the hearing examiner in the matters that we're talking about. The hearing examiner is already hearing the matter and acting as a recommending body. So he's already doing the work, and he's already writing the findings of fact, and he's already putting in those hours before it gets to the council level. So the types of decisions that we're talking about, he already has his hands on them. So we're already paying him to do the work.
Okay, but are those items still coming to the council at this point?
They are coming to the council at this point.
So the purpose of this is to eliminate it coming to the council and instead making it entirely the decision of one person?
To make the final stop of these land use decisions, the hearing examiners.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So other cities, a large number of cities have gone away from having council involved in land use processes and have left the decision at the hearing examiner level with appeal directly to Superior Court. There is certainly a trend towards eliminating council decision-making. And certainly the risk pools, I have experience, a lot of experience with another risk pool that is not your risk pool, but that other risk pool was certainly opposed to council remaining in the land use business, so to speak. So risk pools and MRSC recommend moving away from council quasi-judicial decision-making. So staff's recommendation is that an ordinance be brought forward that amends the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, specifically 2.90 and 2.34, to make the hearing examiner the final decision maker in quasi-judicial matters as authorized by state law, with an appeal directly to the Superior Court. So with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
I have a comment, more than a question.
Sure.
How does this work with other cities where, you know, the council has been elected to represent the constituents within your ward? How much representation does this take away for us?
So I suppose it's hard for me to answer that question in a less than blunt way, I suppose. The job of council is to actually set the rules that are to be applied to these applications, not to decide applications based on what the citizens in their ward think about a specific project. So the opportunity for the citizens to shape what their ward is going to look like is actually at the stage where you're making the laws and the rules that are going to apply moving forward, right? When you have an application is not actually the time that we get to ask those types of questions. It's before that application comes in where we're looking at changes to our comp plan or changes to our zoning code. Those are legislative functions.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I've got a question, if I may.
Sure.
What instigated this? Has Sedro-Woolley been having some problems or something going on, or why is this coming up?
So this is coming up because you have an increasing number of land use development applications. And with that is going to come a lot more exposure to the city or to the council. You're certainly going to be seeing a lot more applications coming before you. And like I said, there is an efficiency factor here as well. Eliminating that step certainly gets development approvals quicker and meets the goals that I know that council has to build additional housing, to support a workforce and provide affordable housing. So it's just seemed like a good time to have the conversation because we are seeing a serious uptick in the number of applications.
Is there going to be a discussion after this, or would now be a bad time to bring it up?
I think we could have a discussion on this. I have one question first, if I may ask. Nikki, what I actually hear you saying is that the decisions that the council will be called upon to make when it comes to hearing examiner decisions, we would need to know the law as the hearing examiner knows the law, correct? We would need to know how it was that those decisions were made, how it was that we are to be determining a decision based upon those laws and regulations. So it requires a lot of knowledge from the council, from each council member to be able to participate. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm saying is that when a matter has already come through the hearing examiner and it comes to the council's job then is to essentially say, yes, the hearing examiner was correct, or no, the hearing examiner was not correct. And then the council has to identify the reasons why the hearing examiner was not correct, right? This is code provision XYZ says this, and the hearing examiner incorrectly interpreted the code provision or illegally decided this matter based on this code provision. So it does require a lot of understanding of the language in the codes and the laws, and decisions on applications cannot be made based on public sentiment or input from the community. It has to be based on the code and the law. So that's why it's so important. The council has the most important job, and that is putting in place the code, which is the framework for the way that the city is going to grow and change. But the actual application of that is where there's risk to keeping that in those quasi-judicial decisions in front of legislative bodies.
And does this put the council at risk?
It can put the council at risk if you violate an applicant's due process rights.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilman Loy, would you like to begin the discussion? Are you interested in doing that?
Am I unmuted now? I haven't figured out your system here, so.
We can hear you, you're golden.
Okay, well, I was just gonna pass on a little history. I was on the planning commission for 8 years. Then I was on the city council. When we brought the hearing examiner in, what was happening is the planning commission would act as the hearing examiner, and people say however many people would vote against a developer's rights just because they didn't like it, even if they knew it was legal, which would cause appeals and a lot of trouble. So then it would get appealed to the city council, and the city council people would, when you appeal to the city council, the only thing they can do is go by the record. They can't bring in any more testimony. They can't do things. You have to read the record, and that's what you make your decision on. Well, we had people that would not do that. They would make decisions based on what they wanted to bring up, and they flat out would say, I don't give a damn. I don't like it. It's out. So then we ended up going to the hearing examiner. And at least when I was around, things were going much better. And I assume they're still going much better from the way they used to.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other thoughts or comments?
I will say that the situation that Mr. Loy pointed out is exactly one of the situations that lawyers get concerned about, and one of the benefits to having a hearing examiner.
Yeah.
Mayor? Oh, go ahead, Carl.
Thanks. Well, it depends who she recognizes.
Yes, Councilman DeYoung.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I don't see a motion before us, so this is just for discussion point only. This isn't like a first read or something of that nature. I'm just looking at the process.
Correct.
Great. And then, is it not appropriate then for the quasi-judicial portion from the council not to take in new information if there's new information about what's happening? Is that if there's quite a flip on something, or I've always viewed it as some sort of backstop of taking some new information that the hearing examiner may or may not have had or did not have, excuse me, during the hearing exam.
So typically you are not supposed to take in additional information unless there's a really good reason to do so. And then there's a process in the code for recognizing that new information. The record is created at the hearing examiner level, and there's plenty of notice provided, and there's opportunities for the public to be heard with the hearing in front of the examiner.
I
And
understand.
all of the information.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilman McGoffin, was there something you'd like to say?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I had a question for Nikki. So for the hearing examiner, who's in charge of managing him? Like if he has a lot of decisions appealed to the Supreme Court and it gets overturned, what is the process in, replacing him or reviewing his decisions? What happens if we have a really good person for a while, but then we get someone that starts making bad decisions? What can we do to remedy that?
So what we can do to remedy that is actually to terminate the contract if there's provisions in the contract that allow us to terminate for convenience. Otherwise, we go out for RFQ at the time when the contract is going to be expiring and seek new hearing examiner services. Right now, we go through a law firm, and the hearing examiner that we use is an experienced land use attorney. And what I've seen of his work so far, I think he does a good job, but that's of course within council's purview to change, of course. So he is a contracted hearing examiner, and council can review his contract at any time and review his decisions. There are jurisdictions that if they go solely to a hearing examiner system, that they will ask the planning department to keep a running list of land use projects and the decisions that are applicable to those projects. I've also seen some jurisdictions actually put their land use decisions online and have interactive maps that hyperlink to various projects and their location within the city, which I think is actually kind of a cool communication tool. But there's certainly ways to track the land use decisions that are being made and to make sure that everyone's aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question of Nikki again, please?
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Kinzer.
Nikki, what are the qualifications of an attorney to become a hearing examiner, and how long has our hearing examiner been on contract with the city of Sedro-Woolley, and why was he the best choice for the city?
Those are excellent questions. The hearing examiner in this case is a land use attorney. My understanding is that all he does at this point is hearing examiner work. I do not know how long he has been on contract because I've only been here for a year now, and he was here before I was. That's probably a better question for John. He might be able to tell you when the contract was let and when it expires.
I can answer that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
In general terms, I don't have the contract in front of me, apologize, but it's been about 3 years that we've been using this hearing examiner service. We used, he does, it's actually Sound Law Group. There's a couple or three hearing examiners at that firm, but they generally assign the same hearing examiner to us for all of our projects, and he's been good to work with. Very responsive. They help us. They're they're on top of procedural matters. They have staff that handles the procedural stuff, and then the hearing examiner himself will do the case writing and review. Several other local jurisdictions use this hearing examiner, and we kind of mimicked their review process in choosing this hearing examiner service.
Thank you, John. Where is their office located?
Well, like many of the hearing examiners are based in the central Puget Sound area. So they're out of, I want to say a Tacoma area. And so they drive up when we have a hearing. In the past, we've used more local hearing examiners, but they're not as well qualified. They don't have as much experience, I should say. And this one came highly recommended, and we've been very happy with the work that they do.
So there are more locally based hearing examiners available that we could potentially look at, although you feel this particular one is more qualified. Is that correct?
we used to use a local land use attorney, and he took another job and kind of quit doing hearing examiner stuff. So that's what led us to looking for a new hearing examiner.
Okay.
And so that's been with it. There's less, full-time hearing examiners in the local area, but should we change services, we would do a local search as well.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank you, Nikki, for the presentation. So we,
excuse me, Madam Mayor.
yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Councilman Allen, go ahead.
Okay, when we started this discussion, I had a little bit of skepticism. And at first blush, I thought, are we passing the buck as a council? But this has been an existing position with no additional cost added to it at this point, right?
Well, only what we pay when he comes up.
And this, to answer the monetary question, the hearing examiner costs are passed on to the applicant that is requesting, the preliminary plat approval or whatnot. So there's not actually any cost to the city for using the hearing examiner.
Okay, so there's not a real concern about a hearing examiner always making autocratic decisions. I mean, they're governed very much by state regulations and RCWs, et cetera, and council.
Yes, they are required to adhere to state law and city code, and they act in the capacity of a judge, and they have to write written findings of fact supporting the conclusions that they're coming to.
Thank you, Nikki.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. There are no more comments. We will go ahead and move on. We wanted to bring this before you because it is a concern. It is a concern that actually Nikki brought to our attention, given that the last piece that we actually heard, the hearing examine decision that we actually heard back in December and made a decision upon. And it became very apparent that we were not adept at what the laws and regulations were. And there was concern that we could actually expose the city. So we just wanted Nikki to go over the information with you, so you had an idea of what this was all about. And later we will bring this before you and have further discussion, and you can make a decision based upon the knowledge you've gleaned tonight and what you might learn along the way before we bring it back. And then we can move forward from there. So. All right. So with that, we are going to move on to staff reports, and I will begin with, is Chief Klinger here, or is it Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, it's myself. I'm here, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, Council, and welcome back, Kevin. I wish I had good news to bring to you. We have 96 new cases today here in Skagit County. I did put in the packet is the late materials, the Washington's Healthy Roadmap to Recovery and how that's set up. We're now a group of 4 counties, so Skagit County, Whatcom County, Island, and San Juan County. That's what we're going to be judged against, those numbers. And those numbers that are in the packet tonight are from earlier or later last week. We'll get the new numbers Friday, and we have to be hit 4 of 4 on those in order to go to level 2. Be honest, right now, looking at the numbers, the way things are coming in and what's going on up at Whatcom County, I don't foresee that happening next week when they make that decision. So as we get those numbers, we will continue to update those, and we'll be working with Bill, and hopefully we'll be able to post those on the city's website so people can follow those numbers. Unfortunately, they come in at such sporadic and odd times, so I can't say I'll have them up there tomorrow or we'll have them up there on Friday. It's whenever the state gets them down to us. And a lot of times they're waiting on county health departments to get that information to them. So that's what we have for you this evening.
All right. Thank you,
Madam
Chief.
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question for Chief, if that's appropriate.
Go ahead.
All right. Hey, Chief, vaccines, how is the staff taking those? Are they taking them?
Yeah, we've got about 47 members on the department. Out of the 47, 20 decided to take the vaccine. We've all had our first dose, and we're scheduled to take our second dose on the 27th over at the fairgrounds. We were able to get the first dose here at the office, which was very nice of the health department. We didn't have to travel over there to the goat barn or the sheep barn, wherever it's out there. But
All right. Anyone getting any time off due to side effects from the vaccine?
no, it was 0.5 milligrams. It's very small. Nobody had any complaints as far as the shot. It's our understanding the second shot might be a little more painful and maybe have some mild side effects, but I guess we'll find that out on the 28th.
All right. So 20 out of 47 have received the shot, and no side effects or loss of work. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, Chief Klinger, they only brought over 20 doses, correct?
Right, and that
is important.
We put it out to the crews. If we would have had more, we could have gotten more, but that's all that wanted it.
Okay, well, that's good to clarify. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and Police Chief Tucker.
Right. Well, we got a rare opportunity here the other day. We got to do something that the fire department does every day. We got to rescue somebody. We made a rescue out of the public restroom. Somebody got locked into the public restroom at Hammer Heritage and had to call 911. We rushed down there before Dean and his crew could get down there, and we saved them before the fire department did. We wanted to chalk one up to us. And then we passed it on to Nathan that somebody had banged up the door, and the poor gal couldn't get it unlocked. And she was locked in the bathroom for probably 15 or 20 minutes with her 2 dogs. And that was a little traumatic, but yeah, we got to do a fire department gig, and that was pretty cool. And some of you may have seen our the report in the Skagit Valley Herald that was very artfully done by the locally famous Vince Richardson on our body-worn cameras. And all joking aside, we've had the body-worn cameras for a long time. And one of the things that we kind of like to share with our neighboring agencies is we're the only ones that do have the body-worn cameras, other than the local tribal jurisdictions. But, you know, even back in the Mike Anderson days when we were really starting to push these, we really wanted them not only for our own officers' safety and security and kind of coverage, and it actually helps it in everything they do, but also a transparency and accountability for our end. We want to be accountable and transparent to the people we serve, and having cameras on just makes that a whole lot easier. The new system is kind of expensive. We're spending about, I think the last bill that we got our upgraded cameras was about $15,000. But one of the things that does cover is unlimited storage and tech assistance and upgrades and replacements and all that. These are pretty robust units. The first cameras we got, every time we fought with a drunk, they would end up on the ground, and you got a weird view of a wrestling match from right between an officer's feet, looking up at them. We had a lot of videos of that. So we got these new cameras. They're really working out well for us, and they're just the newest, latest, and greatest version. For us on the vaccine, I just got a message from, I can't remember if it was from the health department, I do believe. They're going to start looking at trying to get us scheduled for vaccinations sometime next week. We had no indication up until I came in today when we were going to get our vaccinations, and that was kind of a concern for us because we've been still answering calls and going out regularly, and we want to get those vaccinations out of the way. So hopefully we're going to be looking at that in another week. We're not supposed to be in 1A section. We were supposed to be in like 1B section. And I think they were bumping us up because it seemed appropriate at the time. I don't know if some priorities shifted or what. And the final thing I got is you saw the people that I've got hired. You're going to be seeing another couple of folks getting sworn in the next month or two when we get Max out of the academy. I do believe he graduates sometime next week, late next week. They had another COVID scare at the academy and had to do a soft shutdown until they got that sorted out. And then Brady will be another month after that. So we got a couple more people coming out. But then I've got one retired, one officer retired. We had a medical retirement as of the end of last year. Sergeant Jason Harris retired. And then we had a surprise, and I may have shared this with you before, but Detective Hannawalt surprised us by saying, Chief, I'm going to move to Florida. And he is. He's already sold his house in Sedro-Woolley, and he's bought a house and moved his wife and kiddos down to Florida. And he's just here because he can't get into his new job down in Florida right away, and he needs a paycheck. So we're got kind of a surprise there. So we're going to be presenting to Doug. We want to hire a replacement for both of them as soon as possible. But I also, as of the beginning of March, I'm losing another officer, but that one's to military duty. So I'm going to lose him for a year. That one's a little bit harder because we can't just automatically replace them without doing some juggling. And I'm going to take my juggling act up to the mayor and Doug's office here in the next couple of weeks to see how we can replace that spot. Because it's going to be hard for us to lose a senior officer for a year. So we got some more challenges, but the really sobering challenge is this time in 2022, we're going to have upwards of 10 or 11 new officers that weren't working, anytime during 19 or really just kind of starting in 20. So you're going to have a half of a police department that is brand new. And I think you're going to like what you see, but that comes with some costs. You lose a lot of experience when more senior officers go, but you also get a lot of energy and just good people. Like I said earlier, we hired a bunch of good people, and we're going to continue doing that. That's going to be our main focus. So I always talk more than I think I should, but I wanted to get a lot of that out to you all. And I'm open for questions. That's all I have, Mayor.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, if not, thank you very much. Moving on to Director of Building and Permits, John Coleman.
Good evening. Thank you. Good to speak to you again tonight. So a couple of things going on. The Planning Commission is going to be starting their work on the review of the regulations for electronic reader boards in the Central Business District. They'll be starting that work on their January 19th meeting. And at that meeting, they'll also be starting a new work on a state required periodic review of the shoreline management program, shoreline master program, excuse me. And that's our rules that govern development, and so it's kind of development in the shoreline area. So it's kind of our regulations, our zoning code, our comp plan, and our permitting system for areas in the shoreline area, which is mostly down by the below the in the floodplain below the drop there south of Dunlop Street. So it's mostly just our city park. It's not a major part of the city, but is required by the Department of Ecology and the Shoreline Management Act for us to update it this year. And they're actually giving us a little bit of money and a grant to do so. So the Planning Commission is going to start working on that. Also, this week I received the formal annexation petition for the annexation just south of Bassett Road towards the northern part of the city. The City Council has already reviewed this and had discussions about it and gave the okay for the applicant to submit a formal petition. And we received that and sent it to the assessor to make sure that all of the required signatures are there and valid. And there was only one applicant, so that was sort of a formality. And so that came back good. So the next step is for us to get to you the material for you to review and continue the annexation request process. And I think that's about all that I have to present to the council tonight, unless there are any questions from council or the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Okay, Director of Public Works, Mark Freiberger.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I'll be speaking quite a bit about one of the projects on our list a little later, so I'll keep this short. We have 4 projects under design right now, including the re-signalization project at Highway 20 and Highway 9 Township. That's getting close to final design. We hope to have that one out to bid in the next couple of months. And our electrical upgrade project at the treatment plant, we're finishing submittals on that and should have that one ready to start construction in March on that project. And some good news that's come, as I've mentioned to you over the last year or so, we've been working with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad on building a rail crossing to support the Jones-John Liner Trail Corridor project. We've had a major breakthrough with them. We've got an agreement that's being reviewed by them. I have another meeting with them on Friday by Zoom, and they have started design on the undercrossing itself. They have agreed to meet our schedule requirements from the state for the money that we have for that, being complete by the end of June 2021, so just 6 months from now, a little less than that now. So that's huge news for us, and that does significantly move along our corridor project plans. Once that's in place, we have every right to expect that our project will get built over the next 10 years or so. And so I'll stop there for now, and I'll talk to you a little later. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question for, thanks. Hey, Mark. I've been contacted by a neighbor who has had multiple incidents, close calls on Township and Jameson. And folks, and this would also, I think, the ear of our law enforcement folks, they're on Jameson and Township where they run the stop sign. And they were wondering if there was something we could do with enforcement patrols or make the stop sign a little more visible. They had proposed or suggested some flashing lights. So I said I'd bring it up at the next council meeting because they're suggesting some engineering and some enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Director of IT, Bill Chambers.
I'm calling from the road here, so I apologize for the road noise in the background, but I'll keep this short. Glenn is working a lot on police and fire vehicles for new hires and just new vehicles. And I'm assisting with the WIMS software install out at the wastewater treatment plant. And we'll be assisting with the financial web-based software upgrade that Jill will probably be speaking about later. And that's it for the big stuff.
All right, thank you, Bill. Are there any questions for Bill? Okay, hearing none. I will move on to Financial Manager Jill Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I just have a few items to mention tonight. As Bill mentioned already, we will be converting to a web-based version of our current software program, which is Bias. And this is pretty exciting because it's a very secure system, but will just give us better access and flexibility when we're working remotely. So we're excited about that, and that should be happening probably within the next 2 weeks, maybe even as early as next week. Also been working with John, or we'll be working with our John and our online bill pay vendor to accept online payments for the planning department. So that is also coming soon, hopefully. That will just enable the planning department customers to go online, do their process, and then also pay online, and it just is a more efficient process. Probably the big news is we do have a new AP clerk in finance, Trina Wolf, and she's been with us, I think, about 3 weeks. She's been working out fabulously. We're really enjoying her, glad to have her on board. And she's actually online tonight. She'll be doing the minutes now in place of Cheryl. And so we're really excited. She was actually at the last week's work session. So welcome to Trina. And finally, January is always a busy month for accounting as we're trying to close up the previous year. So everybody in finance is busy with a lot of end of the year closings. And that's it for tonight.
All right, thank you, Jill. City Attorney Nikki Thompson.
I don't have anything to add this evening, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Nikki. And City Supervisor Doug Merriman.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have a few different things to brief you on tonight. The first is our library project. If you've driven by there, it's looking like a really nice library now. And we are getting to the point where we are counting the days to having substantial completion, probably within the next week or two, knock on wood, but we're getting really close. The projects right now, I don't want to jinx myself, but we're coming in under budget, and giving the allowances for COVID, we could say we're on time, except for that virus. It did put us back a few days, but nothing insurmountable. So we'll wrap up these final punch lists. We have some electrical things to do and a couple of little pieces here and there, but we're really hoping as far as the construction piece of this will be done here before the end of the month. We don't have a time yet on when the library will actually be open. There's a couple of estimates there, but we'll be moving out of the construction phase into the furnishing phase of moving in furniture and equipment and books. And we'll see how that goes over the next few weeks. The next item is just an FYI. We had talked with Skagit PUD a few months ago about a property transfer. Right now, down where our ball fields are, that property is actually owned by the Skagit PUD. And through some negotiations, they will be quit claiming that property to us, and the city will take ownership of that. So just when both entities looked at risk factors and different things like that, it made sense. The one provision will be if the city changes its mind and wants to do something other than ball fields, the property does have a reversionary piece to where it would go back to Skagit PUD. So we are working with the executive director over there right now on wrapping up some right-of-way and easement issues, and we'll probably have those closed up here pretty soon, and we'll be closing on that property. A couple other just quick things. We are midstream in interviewing candidates for finance director. We did have 14 applicants apply for the job. We have interviewed the top 4, which had very good qualifications. We're going to be narrowing it down to the top 2. And then I'm putting together a list of finance questions that are going to be pretty rigorous. We're going to grill them pretty hard and just see what their experience is. And I've got a posse of friends that's going to join me on that, other finance types. So we'll be going through that process here probably the next week. And the mayor will be involved in that as well. And we'll be looking at making a selection for our next finance director. A couple of good things we have going on. Tomorrow we start training on what's called agendas. It's like Agenda Easy. And right now, Christine in the finance department, she puts a tremendous amount of work moving paper to get that agenda packet for you. And what Agendas does, it's a software package where departments upload their information into the software package. They push a button and it sends an email to me to review. It sends an email to Christine that everything's ready to go, and she reviews, does some administrative work in the software. And when she pushes go, it puts the package together, it numbers it, and it emails it to everybody automatically. So what we're looking is for time savings here and a few less trees getting dropped to put paper in finance. So we're really looking forward to that training beginning. And I think the last thing I have is kind of a congratulations to all of us. We can pat ourselves on the back a little bit that the city qualified for the Awc Wellness Award again for this year. We were able to get 50% of our participants in our health insurance program to go in and complete their questionnaire, which gives the city points. The end result is if you can get 50% or more of your participants in there, we get a 2% reduction in our health insurance premiums that the city pays for employees. And we're able to get that. That number comes to about a $25,000 savings over the year because of everybody going and doing that. So thank you to everybody that participated and congratulations on getting another AWC Wellness Award this year. And that is the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Doug, did you mention the auditor?
No, I did not, but I can do that now. Today we did have the exit conference with the state auditor's office. This is for auditing the year 2019. You close the year, you have until May to file everything, and then you get in the queue for the audit, and they audit all the surrounding cities and everything as well. This year we came out with a clean audit opinion, of course. We had a couple of areas we had talked to the auditors about. Over time, things change out there in the auditor world, and some of the regulations change. And it's always good to keep a relationship with your auditors where you go to them and say, hey, you know, it's been a while since you guys have looked at this particular thing we do, like say our municipal court. Rather than holding your breath and dreading what they're going to look at this year, we usually take a more proactive approach and work with them and say, hey, we would like you guys to take a look at this and make sure we're doing everything okay. So they did look at a couple of items this year, and they've given us some recommendations on those. I mentioned the court, for example. Heidi, our court clerk, works all by herself, and she collects money, she makes bank deposits, she does a great job. But one of the things we want to do is give her some backup, give her some support. So finance will be working with her to maybe split up some of those money collecting functions and things like that. Not only does it get our internal controls where they need to be, but Heidi's got some backup too, and she needs to take a day off, or there are different things like that. So we're improving internal controls and getting cross-trained and getting some coverage in different areas in the department. So the auditors gave us some good comments on that. Thank you to the finance staff. These were very intricate things that we worked on this year, and it took a lot of work, especially with COVID. It's the first time I've done an audit over Zoom and just sending everything electronically. So good job to everybody, and I really appreciate everybody's help on that. So we had a good report from the auditors.
And then one comment that I want to make that Doug is too humble to say is that the auditors said that working with Sedro-Woolley was phenomenal in that we were very transparent. We offered everything that they asked for and then some. We usually offered before they even asked. So it was a very thorough and efficient and good teamwork on our end to make that all happen. So I want to thank Doug and Jill and the finance department for working so hard and providing for us not only a clean audit, but also one that kind of came with kudos. In fact, it did come with kudos. So thank you, Doug. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on, let's see, we will do council reports, and I'll begin with Councilman Lloyd.
My report is I'm here and ready to go.
I love it. Thank you. Councilman Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say thank you and welcome aboard to Councilman Loy. I know he'll be an asset to us, and I'd also like to say welcome aboard to the new police officers. And we're blessed to have them. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Councilman McGoffin.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to echo Councilman Owens. I'm really excited to have Kevin Loy and the new police officers. I know our police department was going through a rough patch there, and I'm happy that they're getting some additional people.
Thank you, Brandon. And Councilman DeYoung.
Just on the welcoming train again. Welcome, Councilmember Loy. Had a great introduction to AP Clerk Wolf today, and to all the officers. Welcome to Sedro-Woolley, and thank you for our service to our community. Just wanted to talk about Township and State. I saw that it was closed today for some tree work, and I was wondering how long that was going to remain closed. I think that was some wind damage. I didn't hear a report on that. It's there on the, that would be what, the southwest corner, that property there. It looked like rather significant branches had come down. And then we talked a little bit about Township and Jameson. I have a neighbor that's very concerned about safety there. And if we could look into some, I know it's enforcement spot number 43, but if we could look at some 53, got it. Thanks, Steve. So just on some enhanced enforcement there, and also if we could look at some engineering. As you know, Jameson is can be an extension of Railroad Avenue there, which is an extension from some county roads, and folks might not be aware that all of a sudden they're in town, and that we need to slow it down, especially with kids and other folks. I walk there frequently, and I would like to continue to serve. Riverfront Park did a walkthrough today around 10 a.m., which was supposedly the high point of some hydrology, and it looked like just some limbs down from the wind, and the river was up and going at a pretty good clip, but it wasn't at the levels that we saw a few years ago over the Thanksgiving Day flood, where it flooded over River Road and out to Township up to the Dunlop, if you will, terrace. So that was good to see. Saw a little water there at the how should I put that? The ad hoc bike park there on Township and River. So there was no one partaking in the park there. And then I just wanted to, Mayor, maybe you could help us with the process of only 20 vaccines coming to our frontline workers. And I understand there's a choice that people can make, honor that. But I really am interested in how that process of where we get the vaccines and how it's distributed to our frontline workers. And if we're short on vaccines for folks who would wish them, what can we do to help support them to get those vaccines? Thank you very much.
Kind of in a nutshell, Carl, there just hasn't been a whole lot of vaccines that have been coming in to the Skagit Valley. I don't think we are the only county that is experiencing that. I think Chief Klinger could probably speak more to that. I know he sits in on some of those meetings that they have. But yeah, and so as far as the 20 vaccines, Chief Klinger, was that because there was only 20 people, or was it because that is all they offered us at the time?
We again, we had 47 people on the department, and if 47 people wanted the shot, they could have got it, but only 20 of the people chose to actually get the vaccine. The rest of them chose not to, and we respected their choice on that. And who knows, that maybe after they see our arms don't fall off, maybe they'll change their mind.
Okay, thank you. And regarding the tree, the closure of the road. So I don't know, Nathan, did you want to speak briefly to that? I know you sent me the email on it regarding it.
Yeah, so what's going on there is at about the 70-foot level of that tree, there's about an 18 to 20-inch widowmaker, and it's hung up in there, and our bucket truck goes to about 60 feet. So we tried to reach it for 2 hours to get it down, and we were not successful. So we got our tree service coming, but the soonest they could get there was tomorrow morning. So we just didn't want to open it back up and risk that limb coming down through someone's car.
Right. My logging family, we call that a widowmaker. So thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And was that it, Mr. Young? Okay, moving on, Councilman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I would say is I'd like to offer a personal thank you to the citizens of Sedro-Woolley, and I'm going to include Chief Tucker for passing Prop 1. We may have a whole bunch of young police officers, but we are at least on the right track. And without the vote of Sedro-Woolley citizens, it would not have occurred. So anyway, thank you, citizens, okay?
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Councilwoman Casti.
Okay, let's see. I just wanted to welcome everybody too, and I'm excited to someday meet you guys all in person, hopefully soon.
All right, thank you. And Councilwoman Kinzer.
Good evening. I just want to welcome all the new officers as well, and welcome to Kevin Loy back on the council. Glad to have you here, Kevin. I'm going to reach a little bit beyond the borders of the city of Sedro-Woolley tonight to just give some news about COVID vaccine. I have been involved in administering it out at Awc Wellness Center out in Anacortes. Many of the Swinomish tribal elders have received it. First responders have received it. Frontline workers have received it. I don't think anyone that has requested it has been denied yet. And I think that's just really good news for us in Sedro-Woolley as well as the whole county, knowing that we're going to eliminate the possibility of at least 100 new cases by people having taken the vaccine, which is good news for us to move on to a new phase. So I think we're around 100 people vaccinated over there right now, and second dose will start being given on January 28th. And also I would like to, hopefully Sedro-Woolley will extend their thoughts to the far upriver communities that were hit really hard by the windstorm last night. There's still a tremendous amount of damage up in that area. I'm up there right now and expect to be without power for many days in that area. And it was harder hit than I think many people have ever seen before. So just thoughts to people in the further upriver areas. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Brenda. So kind of along those lines, we actually received a report from PSE. It's their situation report. And in short, they were saying that the wind, the damaging wind actually is how they addressed it, which is quite accurate, was 64 miles per hour or up to 64 miles per hour with heavy rains. It moved across Skagit County last night, knocking out power and causing extensive damage. There are currently, and this is from 10 a.m. this morning, currently 114 separate outages and approximately 20,000 customers without power at this time. And Nikki, as you shared, your obviously your home and your area is impacted by that. So I agree with you, Councilwoman Kinzer. We do need to extend our thoughts and best wishes for those who are without power tonight. So yeah, Thank you. And then also we had received, I received this email actually from Nathan. So we had more vandalism up at the Northern State Cemetery, some spray painting, graffiti that was that occurred, and working with let's see, he worked with working with Skagit County Parks, Nathan and them decided that we were going to put up ecology blocks and cabling to help keep cars out, keep people from making it easy for people to enter. And I don't know, Nathan, has that been successful or not? Have you been able to put those blocks in with the cable? And
actually, in between the storms and other projects, we haven't had a chance to get up there and get it installed yet. So, but it's just a temporary barrier to try to keep the vandalism under control until we can get back in there and construct our permanent improvements.
Okay. Did you have to go back in and clean, or has that not occurred yet either?
We haven't had a chance to get back up there yet. It's going to be at least one full day of sandblasting to get the graffiti off.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of time and energy, a lot of cost to the citizens of Sedro-Woolley for somebody's fun and games. So, all right, thank you, Nathan.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Brenda.
Hey, Nathan. I remember in our initial discussions about funding for the improvements up there at the cemetery, we were at one time talking about a security camera up there, and maybe it would pay for itself if we could get one up there and start to identify the people who are causing all this damage and prosecute them. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on actually getting that camera up there?
Yeah, we could look into some type of like a game camera type setup. There's wouldn't be any way to get a Wi-Fi signal up there, so it would have to be something that we set up, and then we have to download data from it. But there's probably a way to do it. We can work with Glenn and Bill or the police, see if anybody has any ideas.
I think actually there are game camera setups that carry their own Wi-Fi signals. Correct. And I don't think that would be too difficult to connect to up there. And it might be worth looking into that. It is not incredibly expensive. I've looked into it myself before. Might be something worth checking into because of all the time we're spending on labor up there now. It might be worth investing into some security labor, not only so we don't have to pay that additional labor for cleanup, but also we need to preserve our historical areas carefully.
Definitely. We will do some research.
Awesome. Nathan, if you want any ideas of what services I've looked into, I'd be happy to share it with you sometime later.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then just one last comment. I actually made this announcement before, but it's listed in our packet, or there's a copy of it in the packet, and that is the outstanding merit, the award that the wastewater treatment plant received, and yet again. So a great team, a great staff that works there, and so we thank Kevin, but we also thank Director Mark Freiberger, because it's under his leadership that this all happens. So thank you. Moving on to public comment. I had a request that Daniel Downs would like to make a 3-minute public comment. Is Daniel here? I don't see him listed on our participants. Okay, not hearing Daniel, then I will move on. I actually had 2 letters that were received, or we did, the city did. This one comes from Elizabeth Waldron, and she says, I want to make a comment regarding Governor Inslee's COVID restrictions. I am concerned how these restrictions are affecting our town. There are about 130,000 people living in Skagit County. There have been 2,960 positive cases of COVID in Skagit, with 33 deaths, 107 hospitalizations, and 98% of those have recovered. 80% of those have had mild symptoms and have recovered at home without a doctor. These numbers do not keep justifying our town being on lockdown. COVID restrictions are completely destroying our small businesses and negatively affecting all aspects of our lives. Governor Inslee's COVID restrictions are not laws. They are only guidelines. It takes the legislature to make laws. To enforce these guidelines is violating our rights to have freedom and making a living and going against the Constitution, specifically the First Amendment, which protects freedom of religion and the right of people to peaceably assemble. The Fourth Amendment, which protects your property. The government cannot take your business or property without due process of the law, and they cannot deny you the right to protect your property. The deprivation of right under the color of law, Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242, makes it a crime to willfully deprive a person of a right or a privilege to protected by the Constitution of the United States. Inslee's COVID restrictions and shutdown orders are in direct violation of our Constitution. Mayor Julia Johnson and City Council, you are a public servant and you are elected to serve the people. I urge you to serve the people and completely open Sedro-Woolley. Follow our Constitution and take a stand for freedom. It's time to open up with courage and without fear. There is always risk involved, but we need to take those risks to fight for our freedom before it's too late. Mossy Rock has opened. Their city attorney created a city ordinance that has been voted on by the city council to open. If Sedro-Woolley opens up and businesses are fined and don't pay those fines, because under our freedom of the Constitution, business owners have the right to be open. When we open up, other towns will follow. We need to choose freedom and open up Sedro-Woolley now. Thank you so much, Elizabeth Waldron. And just as a side note here, I just want to state that I did call City Hall, Mossy Rock City Hall, and I did ask for Mayor Sasser was not available, but his assistant was. And I did ask about them opening up their town, and she said they did pass an ordinance that said that if people wanted to open their businesses, that they would support them. They didn't tell them to open up their business. And I asked how many businesses have done that. She said one did open up. The state came in and said, we're giving you a warning, close now, we're going to fine you. And they did close. So all the businesses in Mossy Rock right now are abiding by the governor's mandates. So I just more information there than what was in the comment. And then one last letter. This comes from George Henson. He says, I am George Henson. I live in Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County. As a young man of 17, I witnessed young, gifted upperclassmen choose to forego college and start families to serve and defend our country and the Constitution. They didn't come home. They were victims of a disease or an accident. They wanted to have a family and freedom to live, work, educate, and provide for them as God directed. At 17, I made the same decision to ensure that I and everyone else in my community and in this nation would always have the freedom that we have been guaranteed by the Constitution. The difference for me is that I came home. The other 50,000 did not, and I came home not disabled or crippled for life like the other 160,000 plus that did. Now my wife, Linda, and I live in Sedro-Woolley for over 50 years. We have worked hard, bought a home, made sure our kids had the right kind of education and opportunities to do the same. Now in our 70s, we watch the freedom of our grandchildren and great-grandchildren taken from them. They are being robbed of ensuring their children have an education that respects their right and religious beliefs. They are struggling and could end up losing their business and even their home because of public servants that have chosen to violate the same Constitution they swore to uphold. Over those years, I have never met or heard of anyone who wanted to be sick or really get anyone else sick. During every day of every year, people have had the flu and flu-like symptoms and are trying to stay healthy. Now that we have healthy supplements, prescriptions, and non-prescription drugs and remedies available at AM, PM, neighborhood grocery stores, Rite Aid, Walmart, Costco, Amazon, and anywhere to fill up their bags with medicine they think will help them get over the flu-like symptoms. Hundreds every day of the year. Stand at the shelves of any of these places any day, any time and any day of the year, and watch how many people are checking out labels and getting the medication that they believe will help them. During the time of the swine flu, H1N1, SARS, every flu down to the common cold that has triggered human responses from the sniffles, pneumonia, and even death. What if everyone that felt they had the flu called everyone that they had been in contact with, shut down their businesses, and quarantine from life each time? How did society manage when it has always included the fact that people get sick, almost everyone throughout every year, and for many, more than a number of times throughout each year? It has always been the truth, but our response to was changed in 2020, and everyone has seen the ultimate devastation that is now crippling and destroying families in a way that has never happened before. Obviously, there are those that see a personal benefit of keeping the focus on this particular virus, even as we see physical, mental, emotional, and irrevocable spiritual damage that has been done as a result of this priority. We have committed our lives to reach the broken and the hurt in our community. As recovered alcoholics for 45 years and as a pastor for the last 25. We have witnessed more brokenness and hurt in Skagit County in the last year than we have ever seen. The Constitution that every public servant makes an oath to uphold protects and affords our citizens, young and old, the freedom to make their own decisions and to be held accountable if those decisions violate anyone else's constitutional freedom. I can assure everyone that my priority and responsibility to defend the Constitution has not changed, and I will afford my family and myself every opportunity to hold every person, including public servants, legally responsible for the damages incurred because of their actions. So those are the two public comments, and they are, I think they were entered as late materials, so they're actually on our web if you want to look them up and read them. Okay, and I just want to remind the public that we do take written questions and comments via email or letter, and we will read them remotely. Okay, moving on to new business. It is I have 7:36, so we do not have a whole lot of time. I want to be mindful of the time. We have 3 items of new business, and the first is the 2021 Athletic Field and RV Park Fee Ordinance. This is a first read. And I don't know, is it Nathan or is it Mr. Freiberger who's going to be taking this?
Nathan's going to address that, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief because I know we have some big ticket items to get to, but so basically the ordinance before council tonight is an ordinance proposing to amend the Cedarwood Municipal Code section 12.36.020. This is an ordinance that we've been working on for about a year to get before you. And anyway, it's got several Parks Department related items, and this is just a first read. So we'll have you guys look at it and then hopefully come back at the next meeting for a second and final read. But addresses several areas. First being RV park rates. Haven't increased those for many years, so we're trying to bring those rates back in with closer to market. The second item addresses the length of stay. And kind of the biggest item in here is something new to Sedro-Woolley and addresses charging athletic fees for the first time for our city-owned athletic facilities. And as the council's aware, you know, the last few years we've added Winnie Hauser Park, and as Doug mentioned earlier, we're very close to adding the new baseball fields down at Riverfront. So as a city, we've been very successful in acquiring new athletic field space. But, you know, our staffing levels haven't really grown much to support that. So the new fees is to kind of help us address that deficiency a little bit. So we're projecting that the new fees will enable us to hire an additional 5-month seasonal to help with all this new property maintenance. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Like I said, I want to be brief, and over the course of the next few weeks, hopefully the council can reach out to me, and if there's anything specific they want more information on or wants, we can address that. So, any questions?
All right. Are there any questions for Nathan? Yes, go ahead, Councilman DeYoung.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Nathan, good report. So I heard this could fund 5 seasonal employees, or is that 4, as I'm seeing in the memo?
So it should just be that you're talking about the athletic fee portion. We're figuring it's enough to fund 1 4 to 5 month seasonal position. So just 1.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then also, it's eliminating the tent space at Riverfront. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and the reason for that is we've, the park down there is just not quite, there's no sewers, facilities, there's no shower. We've had some issues with, we're just not set up, with the proper facilities to be able to offer that service in a sanitary way. So it's my proposal to eliminate it.
Okay. So, thank you for that. And I also know that the camp host is no longer there, and they're, with COVID, it's closed. So don't know how we're going from there. But Nathan, I guess my comment is I see many cyclists that are going from Anacortes to the East Coast on the trail that specifically stop off in Sedro-Woolley for that campsite. So I know that there's multiple campsites down there. Maybe we could look at maybe reserving a couple for cyclists in some sort of way. And is the bathroom locked? Is that what's happening when it's closed? Or I know there's no shower facilities there, but as I recall, the Rotary folks built a pretty nice bathroom down there.
Yeah, the bathrooms are all open. The one to the east shelter we close seasonally.
Okay.
When I mentioned unsanitary, what's happening is since we don't have the shower facilities, a lot of the cyclists and the folks that are using it are taking showers in the bathroom where there is
right. No, they're using the French method.
Yeah, it's really disgusting, honestly. But
depends who you are, I guess.
But,
all right. Well, thank you very much.
We can look at it and talk about it some more. So.
All right. Any other questions? If not, we will move on. And the proposed revision to the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code 1504, local amendments to adopt state building codes.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is John, the Building Planning Department Director. The proposal here is just every 3 years, the state requires that jurisdictions adopt the most up-to-date building codes. So it's a suite of international codes, the building code, the residential code, the mechanical code, the plumbing code. And then the state makes some amendments to it, kind of making it more specific to the state of Washington. And then each jurisdiction is required to adopt them. They go into effect February 1st, more or less without the city actually doing anything. But we like to formally adopt the code, the Washington state amendments to the codes in our ordinance under chapter 1504. And we also in 1504 have the ability to make minor changes to the code. We're not proposing anything unusual this year. We're just proposing to update the 2018 books that the Washington state is requiring us to put into effect on February 1st and making no other specific adjustments. So that's why, even though this is a first read, we're asking for action because there's not really anything for the council to review besides, the whole new set of books that we're required to adopt anyway. So it's more or less a formality here and nothing specific for the council to look at. So we're asking for action on this so we can have our ordinance in place when it comes to February 1st, when it's required to go into place.
Are there any questions for John? And if not, this will be ordinance 1975-21. If somebody is looking to make a motion.
I think Brenda's trying to get your attention.
Councilwoman Kinzer? No?
Okay. I'm sorry, I saw you light up there.
Okay. Is there a motion at all? If not, we will put this off until the 20th.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brendan. Go ahead.
No, you got it. You got it.
No,
So
because I was just gonna say.
Okay, I'll go. Sorry. Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve 19, what was the number again?
75?
1975,
Yes.
adopting the codes.
And I second.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilman McGoffin and seconded by Councilwoman Kesty. Any more discussion or any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Okay, motion carries. And we move on to our last item under new business, which is the amendment for 2018 PS 12. And this is you, Mr. Freiberger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try to do a screen share here real quick. Okay, it looks like that worked. So I want to clarify right up front that what we're asking for tonight is authorization to execute amendment number 4 to Carletti Architects professional services agreement to authorize the design phase for the Public Works building, technically the Solid Waste Fleet and Public Works Operations building, at a cost not to exceed $192,000. There's no action needed tonight regarding the construction phase. That will come out after the design is complete and we have a final engineer's estimate for the council to consider. And so we have a couple of months of design work. This is a time-sensitive thing. We have some deadlines coming up on us, and I would request council's action if you're comfortable with it after I make my presentation. I'd like to spend a few minutes now and talk about the background on how we got here. I know we have some newer council members. We actually started this process back a couple of years ago, so it's got some older gray hairs on it. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and move into the presentation. Just as an overview, this is an aerial photo showing the vicinity of 4th Street and Alexander Street. Can you see my cursor on your screens?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So this is the wastewater treatment plant facility. These are the two clarifiers and our oxidation ditch. Our existing laboratory operations building is located under my cursor. We have an existing parks building that's located where I'm showing this off of Alexander that's impacted by the work that we're proposing. And this site to the right is what we call our Limley site. It's an old tree farm that we purchased 15 or so years ago, specifically with in mind a future expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. And what we're going to be doing is relocating our existing Public Works operations facilities into that area in phases in coordination with the expansions of that plant. Now, you haven't had a chance to hear my presentation on our recently completed sewer comprehensive plan. I'll be bringing that to you at a work session in February, I believe, and presenting that in detail. And at that time, I'll be able to give a more detailed background on what's driving the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant itself. Enough said tonight to say that we have some short-term improvements that are going to be happening there, and then some longer term within 10 years that are going to significantly upgrade that facility. And that's driving part of what we're doing tonight. So our agreement with Carletti was executed in March of 2018 to prepare a facility plan for the proposed solid waste fleet and public works operations facility. I'm going to call that facility as we're going through for shortness and breath anyway. The scope of services included the provision to add final design work for the facility if the city chooses to do so. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Previous addenda that have been issued for that agreement include the design work for the wastewater treatment plant laboratory operations building relocation. I'll speak more about that in a minute. The facility plan developed a site and building plan for a new facility to replace the existing solid waste, and Public Works Operations Department offices. I didn't mention that in my introduction, but we're also combining in this same facility, the proposed facility, office space and mechanic equipment facility that will support and replace our existing solid waste facility that's located at the corner of 3rd Street there northwest of the treatment facility. And here's an overview map that focuses in a bit on the immediate vicinity there. The first part that you'll see here, my cursor is showing where we're proposing to relocate our existing laboratory operations building. Now, the background behind that is the existing laboratory operations building is located on one of our hydraulic tanks in the facility. The treatment plant was last upgraded in 1998, and when they did that, they built their lab ops building on top of a tank. Wasn't a good idea when they did it. The day that they opened the facility up and allowed raw sewage to flow in that tank, they had an odor problem in the laboratory operations, the building above, such that it's not habitable when that tank is in service. Because of the skill of our operators at the plant and the fact that we were running about half capacity at the time they opened that in 1998-9, we've been able to bypass that particular tank for the last 20 years and still meet and, in fact, get awards every year for our treatment plant for meeting the biological treatment requirements that we have under our state permit. However, we're at the point in our growth that we need to put that tank back in service and upgrade that to support our process in order to extend the life of our treatment plant another several years until we have to do a major upgrade. And that necessitates us building a new laboratory operations building. We were planning with our next expansion to build a new facility anyway, so this is actually just accelerating that a little bit. The existing one is fairly small, and with the expansion of our operation at the plant, we do need some additional space. So the new facility is going to be slightly larger than the existing one, and the place that we've identified to do that is located here off of Alexander Street, smack right in the middle of our our old Parks facility building. So as a part of that new facility, we were planning on replacing a part of the square footage of that old building, which we do use for storage of our Parks equipment, with parts of our new construction. So a portion of the cost that's out of Fund 401, the wastewater treatment plant, would pay for some of the improvements we're going to be talking about for the operations facility. Associated with the lab ops building is a parking area that basically is encompassed by this blue line you see, and some frontage improvements along Alexander Street, including a new gate that would allow access to the backside of the site. Our existing gate would be basically made unusable by construction of the new facility. It comes into the site right now for the Public Works Operations facility. A couple of other things to see on this regarding wastewater. I've shown in red the location, a likely location of a third clarifier that will take place when we do our next expansion. That's actually scheduled for sometime within the next 10 years. And again, I'll talk about that more when we do the presentation on the sewer comprehensive plan. We don't anticipate we'll have to do it with this next expansion, but there is a chance that we'll have to build another oxidation ditch. That facility would go somewhere in the vicinity of what you see here. Those additional structures would necessitate a future relocation or replacement of the rest of the Public Works Operations buildings that are located on this site. We do anticipate being able to continue to use those, however, for the next 7 years or so at least. But we do need to replace this square footage. I'll also mention that I'm jumping ahead of myself just a little bit, but it's convenient to do so with this map, so I may speed up the rest of my presentation correspondingly. There is also an old structure on the Limley site that's under my cursor here that will also need to be demolished. That's currently used by the police department as an impound facility. When they impound vehicles that have to be kept as evidence, they will put them in there. I've discussed this with Chief Tucker, and we're anticipating in the short term that we would put in a fenced enclosure to store up to 6 vehicles somewhere on this site, sort of a low cost replacement for that. So I've shown in this new site the various pieces that we've come up with for a new facility. All right, so just kind of going back and looking at the reasons for the new facility, I've mentioned the laboratory operations building relocation. That's number 1. Number 2, and I've also mentioned the anticipated 2027 wastewater treatment plant expansion, which will require use of much of the remaining public works operations yard. Number 3, our existing solid waste maintenance facility building was constructed before 1937 as a part of the original wastewater treatment facility. It's well beyond its design life, and our maintenance bays where we do our equipment maintenance are woefully inadequate in height and depth to service the city's solid waste and Vector equipment. In other words, we have to work out in the yard when we're servicing our larger equipment out in the weather. We have 3 frontline solid waste trucks that are very advanced in their computerized equipment, as well as our Vector equipment, and that's just not a very good thing for our mechanic to have to do at this point. We anticipate with a new maintenance facility that's adequate, we would be able to upgrade our service capability to incorporate the city's growing police and fire fleets as well. Currently, those are farmed out to businesses near and far, but the idea is to hire a mechanic supervisor down the road that would allow us to do that work in-house, saving some costs and certainly the time of getting that equipment back in service. As I mentioned already, the existing maintenance building is far too small to service much of the fire apparatus equipment. The facility plan includes covered storage for the city's solid waste and public works operations fleet. That's part of the plan. The solid waste fleet in particular is housed outside, and again, that's not that great of an idea for the advanced equipment that we use in these days. And finally, the facility plan requires demolition of the police storage building that I mentioned there. We were originally planning to replace that particular activity with Fire Station 1.5. I may have mentioned we got a preliminary quote from an architect, the same one actually that we're using for this project, that was quite a bit higher than the budget that we had in the 2021 budget. So we've gone back to the drawing board on that, and Chief Klinger and Chief Tucker are looking at other options, which would involve building some low-cost buildings up at Fire Station 2 to take care of a part of that. And as I mentioned, we're looking at a fenced facility at the Public Works Operations Yard for the impound purpose. So I wanted to give you a little history on how we got here in terms of Council's actions in the past. Council has approved an overall budget of $4 million for this new solid waste fleet and public works operations facility. That is being funded by a combination of sewer fund, solid waste fund, stormwater utility fund, and account 101 general revenue fund at various rates that we've determined based on the percentage of use that those facilities, those funds will have in the new facility. The funds generated by those rates, utility rates and general fund transfers amount to $290,000 a year. And we've been collecting those funds since Council approved that in a new account 505 since 2019. And we have a current fund balance now of $403,000, rounding that off. What those funds will be used for is to provide debt service for a loan, an anticipated low interest loan to construct the facility. The fund balance is also available to cover the proposed final design that we're talking about in this amendment. The proposed source of construction phase funding would be a loan from the Office of the State Treasurer's local program. They have various loan terms. The one that we have built this around is a 20-year loan at approximately 3.35%. The rate would be confirmed at the time of bond sale. And the local program accepts applications 3 times per year. The next one is due in April with the funds available in June. This program is set up specifically for the kind of things we're doing here, for building facilities and also for buying equipment and those kind of things. Doug and I were talking about this earlier, and I'll defer to him on this point to clarify it, but my understanding that this does count against the city's general obligation non-voted tax limits. And Doug is confirming that we have adequate capacity for that. So the facility plan work that we've done to date, again, we started on this in 2018. We have prepared a preliminary plan, or they prepared a preliminary plan which called for a 75-foot by 205-foot combined office, equipment, maintenance, and storage facility, plus various outbuildings for equipment and material storage and other variety of things. The facility plan scope of services included a preliminary preparation of a cost estimate for the site plan and the building improvements. For the initial plan, which was done to our wish list, the cost came at a very high $8.4 million. And that, of course, is well over the $4 million that was allocated by council. We went back to the drawing board and looked at what we could do within the original layout to reduce the costs by shifting things around, shortening up some of the stormwater requirements and various other methods. We were able to reduce the cost by about $2 million, a little more, less, more than that, actually, less than that, to around $6.6 million. That, of course, is still over the budget, so we went back to the drawing board a third time. And I have to credit Nathan and Leo with a lot of this. They proposed, why don't we look at just building a combined maintenance and office building with a couple of bays rather than building the whole storage thing at this time and getting that done and getting that in operation. So we went back to the architect and began looking at that, and we did come up with a third plan that approaches the improvements in phases rather than trying to do them all at one time. Okay, so here's the original concept plan. Again, these are the clarifiers. This is the new wastewater lab ops building. Originally, we were proposing just to extend our existing operations building with a new, basically a pole structure that would allow 4 additional bays to replace the lost area. And then the 205-foot long combined office and equipment maintenance and storage facility. There were other parts in that $8.4 million estimate to replace the other pole buildings that will eventually be lost on the wastewater treatment plant when that's expanded, and to provide materials bunkers. And it had a future pad and building for our Vector stormwater waste disposal and dewatering, something we have to do with those materials when we clean catch basins and storm drains. This was the original concept, which we've now moved beyond. The updated plan will have an 80 by 82 foot structure that includes the original concept for an office wing. Basically, it's the same size as originally. And then 3 16-foot wide by 50-foot mechanics bays, and then 2 16-foot wide by 50-foot vehicle storage bays, which would be split between public works operations and the solid waste operation.
Hey, Mark, can I interject for some pro forma? Madam Mayor, it is past the 8 o'clock hour. I move that we extend the meeting to 8:15.
Is there any objection? Then so moved.
Thank you. The order of magnitude estimate for the phase 1 improvements is $2.9 to $3.5 million. These are really order of magnitude estimates at this point because we've done no design work on that to date. It does include a 20% contingency. At that rate, with our 4 million available, we would have roughly 1.4 million to 0.8 million left, which we would propose to use for completion of the phase 2 site improvements, which I'll talk about shortly. Phase 2 of the plan includes the site work for a future scaled down vehicle storage or equipment storage building. It would be 75 by 135 and allow for 8 bays. I haven't done a detailed cost estimate on this to date, but based on our original site plan, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million to $1.5 million. Phase 3 would be for construction of the equipment storage building itself, estimated between 2.8 and 3.5 million. We're not proposing to move forward with that at this point, but there is a possibility to request funds from the legislature for under the capital facilities part of their budget. That's a common thing that is requested by agencies, and that provides probably the most likely source for applying for those funds. We're planning to initiate a discussion with Senator Wagner and our delegation, maybe as early in the next couple of weeks. Phase 4 would include the equipment bunker and pole buildings that would be displaced by the future wastewater treatment plant. Those are currently estimated at about $0.6 million. And that would be actually funded, as I mentioned earlier, as part of the wastewater treatment plant expansion project itself. There would be a future project down the road for the Vector decant facility. We haven't estimated that at this time. This is basically a drawing showing what I just described verbally, the January 2021 phased plan. We're proposing, if you authorize the final design, that we would set this up in 3 bid schedules. Bid, it's one project. Schedule A would be the already funded through Count 401 wastewater treatment plant lab at 1.3 million. Schedule B would be the public works building itself at the estimate we discussed earlier. That would include a part of that money would come from the contribution from the account 401 to replace the parks building square footage. Schedule C would be the phase 2 site improvements. And on the drawing up here, Schedule A is this in this light yellow profile, including the frontage improvements on Alexander. Schedule B is in the orange, which would include the 82 by 80 building I mentioned. And Schedule 3 would be the area outlined in green, excluding the building. That would be a future depending on funds. The future improvements would be the area down below here, the rest of the site for the 2027 improvements. And by the way, we already have this site roughly graded, so we can use this for various storage uses in the short term. This is just a colorized version showing the existing structures and the new structures on that site and showing the various phases once again in the buildings. Then some details here. This is a close-up showing the laboratory operations building, the intervening yard, and the new storage building plus office complex. And of course, the phase 1 improvements are shown on this drawing. It's hard to read, but basically we would, in addition to the building, we would be paving this out to encompass where the gate is. And we would also do some area improvements down in here as Schedule B. Schedule C would be the site work to cover all of the area encompassing the future vehicle storage building. This would basically get the drainage in, the grading in place, and hopefully gravel, at least for the future parking area, so we have a place to park our crew vehicles and those kind of things. This is a blow up of the building floor plan itself. The 5 bays, the 3 north ones being for the mechanic area, and then the office building itself. The building is actually fairly tall to allow for 14-foot doors to get the equipment in and to raise them on a lift. That allows for 2 stories on this structure. We've built the ground floor, or would build the ground floor with this particular project, and the stairs, and then the second floor would be unfinished for future development as additional offices as those are needed. That's work, by the way, that we could likely do in-house as time permits over future years. These last couple of sketches are the elevations. This is the part of the equipment building facing to the east, showing the 5 overhead doors. This is the side facing the west, which would face the laboratory operations building. And again, it's tall because of the need to be able to service the large equipment in this bay back here. These are the side elevations of the building. And just for comparison, this is the already nearly finished design for the laboratory operations building that would be across the way. All of these buildings would be finished with, we do have to be sensitive to our own design standards down there because of the building where it's located. So we are putting in a wainscot on the bottom of this, which would basically be CMU. And then above that, it would be metal siding for economy and for future maintenance purposes on the sides of the building. So nothing fancy, pretty plain vanilla really on this structure other than the wainscot. And the fiscal aspect or impact of this proposal, the design phase, which again is all that we are talking about tonight, the estimated cost is $192,000. And I should clarify, this is not just the design. In Carletti's estimate is the design for phase 1, which is the building and its site improvements, and the future, the site improvements also for phase 2. And it includes the construction phase support should we go forward with a bid on this. That would be monthly site inspections and review of the submittals as they come in. So it's not just design. And if we didn't move forward with the construction immediately, we wouldn't spend that part of this estimate. As I mentioned before, we have $403,000 in the fund balance, so we have the cash to move forward with this now. It requires no additional financing. That'll leave $210,000, which is a growing fund balance on each month for the first debt service, which would come up sometime in 2022 if we did acquire a loan and move forward in this summer. The construction phase, which again, we're not funding today, the estimated cost of the laboratory operations building is $1.35 million, again, funded by Fund 401. The solid waste fleet building, as I mentioned before, is the range of 2.9 to 3.5 million. That gives a total project of $4.2 to $4.9 million. The source of funds is $1.68 million for Schedule A, the wastewater from Fund 401. The $4 million that Council has authorized for the Public Works facility, that gives us 5.68, and that leaves us a contingency amount which would cover the Schedule C site improvements between 1.4 and 0.8 million, depending on where we come in this range. And I did do a rough site improvements estimate between 1 and 1.5 million. So it appears that this is workable using these numbers. I would state that, I'll go over that in a second. I would state that the importance of going forward with the design now is I can't confirm any of these numbers until I've got a detailed design to make a final estimate on. We will have the opportunity, once we have that information, and we'll come back to Council to present on that. If the dollars work out and it looks like it's feasible, then we would recommend acquiring the funding for the construction phase through the local program, and then going to bid. So the Council will get another bite at this probably in April before we go any farther with the project. I was asked some questions by various council members about why we aren't doing something less expensive to build than the wood frame structure we're talking about. And by the way, that's what this estimate allows for, is a wood frame construction with metal roof and siding. Here's my answer to that, best I can do. The design life for a structure like this and what we're trying to do to build a public works structure is to shoot for 50+ years for the lifespan of this building. This structure would be earthquake proof. It would be built to suit to meet our needs for both our office facility and our fleet maintenance facility. The estimates that you see in the previous slides is based on a shop cost of about $255 per square foot, and then about $290 for the finished office area. And that was the low end cost of $2.9 million. The other alternates we looked at were pre-engineered metal building with internal improvements. That also would have a design life of about 50 years. That also would be earthquake proof. The problem with using a pre-engineered metal building is we have to basically build a building within a building for that. We'd have to completely fur out and build our office part of this building separate from that. It's harder to insulate that kind of a structure to do what we need to do. The internal components, the electrical, the HVAC become more difficult working around the metal framing members. The costs, however, wouldn't be a whole lot different. I'm still thinking they're in the $2.9 million, close enough to not really be a significant difference. The other alternate we considered was a wooden pole building with a metal roof and siding, plus the internal improvements. The challenge of that is it has a much shorter design life. And again, we were going for a structure that's going to give the city good service for at least a half of a century. These they're not earthquake proof. They have a tendency to fall down in a good shake, which is a huge factor for us because for our public works facility, we're going to have, a lot of expensive equipment inside of these buildings, and we do not want them falling down. And we also need to be able to remain in service after a major event like that. So that's a rather important consideration for us. The internal improvements are similar to the issues we would have with a pre-engineered building. We have to build a building within the building, complicated by the components there of the structure, wood in this case. Scheduling wise, the agreement I have with the architect is that they are on board if I get them a notice to proceed with this work soon, and that's in the next couple of days, to have the preliminary design to 90% with their engineer's estimate by the end of March 2021. They would have the final bid documents completed for an May 21 bid advertisement. And as I mentioned before, we would have to come back to council and make sure funding was in place before we could advertise for bids. And I've already talked about the Office of the State Treasurer program. I will just mention one more time that their funding is, the applications are due 3 times a year. April is the next one. If we can make the April date, then the June funds availability would allow us to go to bid and begin construction in 2021. I would anticipate this is about a 6 to 9 month construction project. If we don't meet that April submittal date, the next one is September of 2021 with funds available in October. That would probably be too late to do much other than bid a project for 2022 construction. So we would lose a year under that scenario. The third funding availability would be in December with funds available in January 2022. And again, obviously that would push us beyond 2021 construction. My recommendation to council is that you approve amendment number 4, which would allow us to proceed with the design, understanding that we'll come back to you again after we have the final construction cost estimates and with a recommendation to move forward if market conditions warrant. Part of the challenges we've been facing, of course, have been COVID-19, been much discussion on that tonight, and that's affected building costs as well. Right now, they're fairly unstable. Wood prices in particular are probably double and triple what they were a year ago. This scenario I'm talking about gives some time for that to stabilize and gives us the opportunity, if we choose not to move forward in 2021, to hold the project. I've got the next slide talks about the advantages of moving forward and the consequences of waiting. The design would be complete and final costs prepared in time for a possible 2021 construction. First advantage, We can secure the local funding for a April-May advertisement. We take advantage of the cost savings of combining the wastewater lab building with the public works building, which would save us both on mobilization and economy of scale of doing the work. It just is less expensive to build 2 buildings than 1 to an extent. Bids would not advertise until April or May. And again, COVID-19 may or may not be resolved such that prices will stabilize. If the construction market is still challenging, we can wait another year. We can choose to do that. The consequences of waiting, we will still need to complete the design to confirm the cost. If we don't start it now, then I'll be coming back to talk to you again about doing it later on. I think the need for the facility is still recognized, and I don't really see any way to move this forward other than moving forward with the design. We will miss the April local program cycle if we delay awarding the amendment. This would also delay the wastewater treatment plant laboratory operations building construction, or cause us to separate the schedules, missing out on the cost savings or for mobilization and the other things I mentioned. If the wastewater lab ops building moves forward without the public works building, we can do that, but we would have to stop our yard improvement short of the building and lose some of the advantages for drainage and the other things that I mentioned before. We would still be demolishing the parks building and still have a problem with replacing that use. That would not be addressed if we do not move forward with some kind of public works facility. And quite frankly, adding another year of inflation may outweigh the possible improvement in bidding climate. I've done this for a number of years now. I'm getting a little over 40 to reveal myself. And every time I've tried to delay a project to take, because I thought I had high bids, when I've rebid the projects, they've come in higher. That's just been a reality I've faced over my career. I think COVID is a different animal, and I am hopeful that there will be a better outcome on that. I just frankly don't know right now. None of us do. So I better take a moment. I know we're getting late. If you have any questions that I can clarify and go back before I go forward any more on this, but I'm ready for that if you would like to ask any questions on it.
Sure, yeah, I'd like to ask a question or maybe so make a statement. It frustrates me in a way that this is brought to us as a first read with action requested, and realizing that we did not have a lot of relevant information to consider in written information or whatever that could have made a difference in our thought process about this. I know we're definitely on a time crunch, but it's frustrating to get first read stuff requesting action and getting all this late information at meeting time and not being able to really consider everything thoroughly to make a educated decision. Thanks.
That's noted, and I appreciate what you're saying there. There's really a couple of things that have led to this. It's been very difficult working with my consultants as well, getting the information we needed to. We've been pushing as hard as we can to get the displays that you see there and the estimates that you have. I've only had the estimates themselves for about 2 weeks. So I just simply was not ready to bring this to you before this. Also, in putting together this memorandum, some of the things that I just didn't have a handle on yet, I had to incorporate in this, including the funding source, how that would happen, when we'd be able to get those funds. Those things all conspired together to bring this to you, requesting action on it. Again, you will have the opportunity to look at this closer as we go forward. I have been mentioning that we are involved in this process for a couple of years now, and I do apologize for it coming down to a squeeze on this. But as you may know, I've got some other things going besides this too, and we've been really pushing hard in addition to this to get the designs that I mentioned earlier in the meeting underway so that we can push out those projects as well. So not the way I like to do business, not the way I have done business with you in the past. But I did think that it was important that we move forward on this. And as I met with the mayor and Doug, we felt we needed to bring this on to you tonight for your opportunity to review this. So again, I apologize, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. We appreciate you very much. I just hope that Phil, we're in the loop totally, are getting up to speed on this as the meeting takes place tonight.
So noted.
I have a few questions if I can, and I'll
Yes,
make
go
them
ahead,
short. I'll make them
Councilman
real.
Loy.
Pardon me?
I was just saying, go ahead, Councilman Loy.
Oh, I haven't learned how to, what the protocol is for butting in yet, so. Okay, from what I'm hearing, this is, you're asking for $190,000 just for design. You're not, at this point, you're not building anything. You just want to get the design done, correct?
That is correct.
And there's a fund to pay for this building, so we won't have to raise taxes.
That is correct.
And the kind of hurry up is needed because you got to fit into the schedules for funding from Olympia and Olympia.
That's correct. And also to move the design along far enough that we can do that according to their schedule. Correct.
Okay, and then come March or April, the city council will have another opportunity to make choices whether they want to go forward or not, correct?
That is correct.
And if the market conditions are wrong, this project could go on the shelf for a while, correct?
That is correct.
You got, I think I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilman DeYoung.
Yeah, is there, I'd like to make a motion. Is there a
All
motion? Is there a number I could reference?
It's agenda item number 4.
Okay, well, all right. Usually there's a, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to add the final design work and Public Works Operations Facility Phase 1. And
Madam Mayor.
authorize the Director of Public Works to execute Amendment 4 to Professional Services Agreement 2018/PS/12 with Carletti Architects, Personal Services of Mount Vernon, Washington, and add final design work and construction phase services to the solid waste fleet and Public Works Operations Building at the cost not to exceed $192,075.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Allen, I'll second.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman DeYoung, seconded by Councilman Allen, and it is to authorize the Public Works Director to execute Amendment 4, and it is for the design phase and not to exceed $192,075. So any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mark, for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so it is coming up on the half hour. It's almost 8:30, and I want to remind everybody that our next council meeting will be January 27th at 6 p.m. So in the meantime, between the windstorms and the rainstorms, you all stay safe out there and you have a good night. We're adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.